Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. Long Jiannan sneered. Ling Yuxiu and Cai Yunxiang had merely just entered Six Directions realm, while she and the Red Snake were experts of Seven Stars realm. Whoever entered Seven Stars realm could become a general in Eternal Peace Empire. Before Dragon Rider sect had rebelled, Long Jiannan had assumed a position in the army by dressing as a male. With Ling Yuxiu and Cai Yunxiang's abilities, they were no match for her and the Red Snake. Courting death. Long Jiannan's palm flipped over and her vital qi transformed into a huge python which coiled behind her body with jaws wide open. The air in the surroundings instantly rushed towards its mouth as it tried to swallow the two girls in the air. Even though Dragon Rider sect wasn't proficient in spells, the power of their spells still couldn't be underestimated. Imperial Preceptor's reform had allowed Dragon Rider sect to absorb the strong points of other sects, raising the power of their spells by a level. This dragon python swallowing heaven had already obtained the Samadhi state. However, Ling Yuxiu held 9 dragons' weapons in her hands and raised it over her head to smash down. In midair, bolts of lightning instantly gathered and crackled as they struck onto her 9 dragon weapons. It transformed into 9 dragons' hammer which collided with the huge mouth of the vital qi python. The explosion of the power of lightning instantly shattered the spell of Long Jiannan, causing her vital qi to disintegrate. While Long Jiannan was astonished, Cai Yunxiang waved her hand and a fine string came stabbing towards her left eye. Long Jiannan flicked her fingers continuously, yet that string wasn't affected and continued to fly over. The middle and index fingers of Cai Yunxiang's pointed toward Long Jiannan, and the tip of her fingers dotted again and again. The tip of Thousand Silks also transformed again and again, actually executing sword moves that were extremely intricate. Saintess Xiong's sword skills ain't bad. The sleeve of Long Jiannan's left arm swept over and over again and her vital qi transformed into a jade annulus to mess up the sword treads that were rushing toward her. Yet at this moment, Long Jiannan noticed that Cai Yunxiang had her right hand in front of her body and her left hand behind her body. Her left hand was also gesticulating sword secrets which alarmed her and made her immediately rise into the sky. Just as she did that, she saw her purple dress fluttering as thousands of holes opened up, wind passing everywhere. Meanwhile, in the sky, Ling Yuxiu raised her huge hammer to smash down, and Long Jiannan raised her hand to block. A loud rumble rang out when flames burst forth from the huge hammer. The strength was incomparably terrifying, blowing Long Jiannan away with one strike. 9 Dragons Monarch technique was naturally a first-rate technique and had extremely high attainments in spells. Due to that, the accumulated magic power was like a vast sea. Both on the same realm and below, the magic power from 9 Dragons Monarch technique was the densest. Of course, this was excluding Qin Mu's Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique. In addition to that, Emperor Yangfeng was the most intelligent emperor since Eternal Peace Empire was founded and had long become a great expert of his generation. He had improved 9 Dragons Monarch technique and added in transformations of battle techniques and sword skills, allowing the power of this technique to far surpass what it was in the past. The technique that Ling Yuxiu cultivated was this, and the path she took was the fusion of battle spells. By unleashing battle techniques and spells together at the same time, the power of her attacks was increased. So even though Long Jiannan was on 7 Stars realm, she was still caught off guard by the attacks of the 2 girls and got blown away. The moment Ling Yuxiu landed on the ground, she let go of her hammer, and 9 dragons' hammer separated into 9 dragon-shaped weapons which swiftly combined together once more. The countless number of scales moved and transformed into a mirror. Ling Yuxiu stood behind the mirror, and with a hum, a beam of light shot out. Within it seemed to be golden dragons flying and dancing around, shining on the body of Long Jiannan who was flying backward. Cai Yunxiang immediately rushed over and flew past the mirror. Her sword threads coiled around and sliced toward Long Jiannan who was hit by the mirror light. Xiao Hong! Long Jiannan shouted sternly. With a raise of her palm, the ground trembled, and several hundred stone spikes shot up from below, blocking Cai Yunxiang's path and the mirror's light. The huge red snake behind the 2 girls suddenly stretched its body, which was as thick as a pillar that only several people could hug. It came sweeping over with boundless strength, and if they got hit by this behemoth, they would be severely injured if not shattered in pieces. Dragon Rider sect's true trump card wasn't cultivation or magic power, and neither was it divine arts, it was the dragon in their mouth. The snakes they raised were all a special breed that had the bloodline of flood dragons. Even if the people's cultivation wasn't high, the snakes they raised would definitely have a high enough ability to kill their opponents. This red snake of Long Jiannan was one of the special breeds among the special breeds. It was the same as the Dragon King's flood dragon of the Divine Bridge realm. This snake had an extremely close kinship with it, and the bloodline of this flood dragon was very pure, thus a snake was enough to sweep everyone on 7 Stars realm. Long Jiannan had relied on this pet of hers to become a reputable expert. The fierce power of the red snake came barreling over, but just as it was about to crush the 2 girls, a scorching beam of light shot from behind its body. The red snake was stunned when it saw its body being sliced in half by that beam. The loose half then wiggled about, sweeping down the forest in pieces. At the side of the pond behind the huge snake, Qin Mu stood with a huge eyeball which was shooting out a bright beam. This was, of course, the attack that had cut the snake in half. The red snake hissed in pain and spewed out a lump of dense poisonous fog while springing up to bite Qin Mu with the remainder of its body. This poisonous fog was highly toxic, and Qin Mu wasn't willing to get tainted by it. Moving away, he executed heavenly pilfering divine legs and avoided the attack of the red snake. His speed was extremely fast, and before the red snake could even react, he was already in the sky. Qin Mu looked down from above and saw that the city of the Solomon Seals had been completely destroyed. The Solomon Seals that had been living in the trees were also swept away. It was evident that after Long Jiannan had discovered this place, she had ruthlessly killed and captured all the Solomon Seals and razed the place where they lived. Long Jiannan must have learned about Qin Mu and the rest from the mouths of those Solomon Seals, since they really didn't have any spirit of loyalty and were swift to sell out others. Qin Mu's expression sunk. Even though these Solomon Seals didn't have the spirit of loyalty, they had still helped his group. And since they had helped, they were benefactors. Suddenly, the huge head of the red snake sprung into the air with its jaws wide open to an extreme degree. The mouth of the snake nearly formed an eye shape as it came biting toward him. Die? Qin Mu adjusted the jade eye, and a beam shot straight down the mouth of the snake with a hum. All the flesh that the light passed by was melted. Hum. The intense light shone onto the ground, and the ground instantly melted, creating a pit. Boiling lava started to vaporize into steam that flowed out, condensing into small beads of rocks that fell from the sky when they cooled down. It was as if there was a small-scaled rain of rocks. The jumping strength of the red snake was astonishing, so its huge body swallowed both Qin Mu and the jade eye. However, since its flesh was pierced all the way through, a passageway was opened up. The brain of the snake was also pierced as well. Qin Mu's body landed on the ground, and behind him, a red snake fell down like a tattered sack that was giving off a fragrance of cooked meat. Xiao Hong. Long Jiannan's miserable shriek came from a distance. The 3 women had already fought all the way to the surface of the sea and were clashing furiously on the water's surface. In the sea, it was extremely easy to control water, so Long Jiannan's vital qi had fused with the seawater, transforming into pythons to attack in all directions with astonishing power. However, it was a pity that Ling Yuxiu and Cai Yunxiang's spirit weapons were too good and their powers were too strong. When facing Long Jiannan's attacks head-on, Ling Yuxiu could separate her 9 dragons' weapons into 9 pieces, transforming into 9 dragon-shaped blades moving up and down, left and right, colliding with the spells and destroying them. They could also transform into a defensive state, 9 Dragon's Shield, to block Long Jiannan's attack any time. Meanwhile, Cai Yunxiang's techniques were even stranger. They were as unpredictable as her 1,000 silks, vanishing in the water sometimes and appearing on top of Long Jiannan's head from time to time, making her unable to guard against it. Even though 1,000 silks was fine, it was very lethal and it posed the most danger to Long Jiannan. When the red snake died, Long Jiannan's frame of mind was messed up, and Cai Yunxiang saw a flaw. The spirit weapon hummed and transformed into a thin sword blade, which pierced Long Jiannan's heart. The tip of the sword came out the other side. Just as Cai Yinxiang succeeded in landing a blow, Ling Yuxiu stretched her hand out, and the 9 dragons combined into a hammer, smashing onto Long Jiannan's body. Cracking sounds rang out, and countless of bones were shattered, piercing the woman's skin. With bones sticking out of Long Jiannan's body, she was a bloody sight that was extremely terrifying. Cai Yinxiang pulled out 1,000 silks, and Long Jiannan's body trembled as it fell into the seawater. Ling Yuxiu shouted out, "She still has our spirit weapons." Cai Yinxiang immediately lifted up Long Jiannan's corpse. Having almost let it fall into the sea, she couldn't help grumbling, "I had already succeeded in landing the killing blow, yet she still had to hammer on the body. Look at how shattered her bones are now, I can't even carry her properly." The 2 girls dragged Long Jiannan's corpse back onto the island and started rummaging through her body for treasures. They could only find the Dao Tai sack, which they opened. Inside, they saw all their spirit weapons and all kinds of other treasures. Cai Yinxiang poured the items out, revealing countless corpses of the Solomon seals that piled up like a small mountain. Close to 10,000 corpses of the Solomon seals piled up together were merely 3 yards high. However, these Solomon seals all had the shape of humans, and 10,000 corpses piled up together was still an extremely astonishing sight. It had an indescribable sorrowful feeling to it. "Cult Master, I finally understand, this is not the strong preying on the weak." From the corner of her eye, Cai Yinxiang saw Qin Mu slowly walking over. There was a hard-to-detect hint of sorrow in the eyes of the devil cult saintess when she said in a low voice, "This is definitely not the strong preying on the weak, but instead, toying with the lives of others to realize selfish desires." When she was killing these Solomon seals, she must have felt like she was a god. Qin Mu walked to her side and said, being apart from nature, she couldn't understand that. These Solomon seals were originally spirit herbs, so even though they are dead, their roots are still here. They might just come back to life again if we plant them beside that spirit spring. Let us do this. The 2 girls nodded. Planting down 10,000 Solomon seals was quite tiring, but luckily they were divine arts practitioners. Until nightfall, they finished planting all of them. Cai Yinxiang went to gather some firewood while Ling Yuxiu went to fetch some spring water to water the Solomon seals. Qin Mu tidied up the Dao Tai sack and placed the 2 jade eyes inside before placing over 3,000 jade-quality luminous pearls on the beach. Each of these luminous pearls gave off a charming glow. Cai Yinxiang picked up some firewood and came to the beach to lit the bonfire. She then took out her outer clothing and jumped into the sea in her undergarments. Her undergarments were like a skirt with straps on the shoulder and were made of pure white silk with no embroidery. On her lower body were white underpants that were only 3 inches long. They also had fine straps that were tied to her snow-white thighs. After a moment, Cai Yinxiang carried a huge fish out from the sea and threw it beside Qin Mu. She then circulated her vital qi to dry up her undergarments before putting back on her clothes. Only then did she notice that Qin Mu had dragged Long Jiannan's corpse over some time ago and placed it beside the bonfire. He had also dragged over the 2 parts of the red snake's corpse, which made her bewildered. "Cult Master, what are you doing?" "Guarding the corpse, waiting for her to wake up." Cai Yinxiang burst into laughter. "If you wait for 2 more days, the corpse will start to stink. I've pierced her heart and Princess Xiao shattered her bones, so how could she still be alive?" When Ling Yuxiu walked over and saw Long Jiannan's corpse, she couldn't help frowning. She probed, "The one that herds cows, are there any weird rules in Great Ruins?" Qin Mu kicked the corpse of Long Jiannan and sneered, "Sister Long, stop acting, I've seen you shed your skin before." The 2 girls smiled. "It's better to bury her soon." Qin Mu sneered, "Before I bury her, I have to chop off her head first. This knife of mine is thirsting for blood." Once he said that, he pulled out his pig slaughter knife with an unpleasant expression. Ling Yuxiu and Cai Yinxiang were both shocked. Ling Yuxiu asked softly, "Saintess Xiong, is there some rule about beheading corpses in Great Ruins?" "I also don't know. Maybe there's really such a weird habit in Great Ruins." Just as Cai Yinxiang said this, they heard the sound of human skin splitting. It came from the top of Long Jiannan's head. Long Jiannan's scalp split open, and the sound was hair-raising. With difficulty, a woman began crawling out from the split human skin. Lin Yuxiu and Cai Yunxiang screamed, then noticed that they were both hugging each other. The next second, they let go. Qin Mu took out his Qin jade pendant and put it on him. The jade pendant and Emperor's disc were tied together and had been thrown in together into Dao Tai sack by Long Jiannan. One of these items was related to Qin Mu's parentage, while the other was a treasure cripple had given him to ward off evil. The sight of Long Jiannan crawling out from her skin was simply too terrifying, and it just so happened that Emperor's disc could be used to ward off evil. After a moment, a naked woman managed to pull her upper body out of Long Jiannan's skin, and some shattered bones jutting out from the skin were also squeezed out. This woman was naked and had disheveled hair. She had difficulty crawling and coughed up blood as she did so. Lin Yuxiu then came to her senses from the shock and immediately urged Qin Mu, "Turn around, don't look." "It's not like I've never seen this before," Qin Mu muttered, but he still turned around. Not long later, Long Jiannan finally managed to crawl out from her skin. She was at her last gasp and had no strength, and her appearance had become slightly older. She was no longer a woman in her prime age. She now looked a dozen years older. Cai Yunxiang fetched a shirt to cover her body, and while she did that, she secretly pinched the body of this woman, and her gaze flickered. She told Lin Yuxiu in a low voice, "There are still some shattered bones in her body, she didn't spit all of them out." Long Jiannan sat up with difficulty and wiped away the blood at the corner of her mouth. She said weakly, "My injuries were too severe, so this shedding could only heal the injuries of my heart and some of the bones. If I wanted to recover completely, I would have to shed a few more times. Every time I shed my skin, I become a dozen years older, losing much of my lifespan. You guys can be at ease, I am of no threat to you anymore." Lin Yuxiu looked at the two halves of the red snake's body and suddenly gave a shudder. Could this huge snake also? Long Jiannan's expression turned sorrowful, and she shook her head. Xiaohong has already been severed into two halves and its head was destroyed. There's no way it can recover. That's good. Cai Yunxiang and Lin Yuxiu sighed in relief. Qin Mu turned around and revealed a smile. "Sister Long, may I ask where your esteemed father is? Where is he hiding? Who is with him? Why does he want to meet me?" Long Jiannan didn't speak a word. Qin Mu kept smiling as he stretched out his index finger. A strand of vital qi flew out and sliced a piece of the snake, then moved it to roast it over the bonfire. Fat started dripping off the snake meat, and it gave off smoke as it sizzled. Long Jiannan's gaze landed on that piece of snake meat and her pupils contracted. "There are 361 halls in my heavenly saint cult, and one of them is called Justice Hall. They rigorously carry out cruel laws and have thousands of ways to make one confess." Qin Mu's face was sometimes bright and sometimes dark under the illumination of the bonfire. "Eternal Peace Empire also has a Ministry of Justice, and you should have heard of their ways. The government minister of Ministry of Justice is the Emperor's man, but the assistant minister is the Justice Hall Master of my heavenly saint cult. If I wanted your answers, I would just have to trouble him. Will you take the initiative to speak, or shall I force it out of you?" Long Jiannan sneered. "Eternal Peace Empire and Heavenly Devil Cult have such deep ties with one another, it's truly founding an empire by the means of the devil. Cult Master Qin, even though there was a threat in inviting you this time, I was still courteous, wasn't I? I didn't cause trouble for you guys, otherwise, chopping off Cult Master's legs, the princess's hands, and blinding the saintess wouldn't have been too difficult for me. I would like for you to treat me the way you've been treated. Now that I'm in your hands, I hope to receive deferential treatment as well." Qin Mu shook his head and said, "I can give you deferential treatment and not give you trouble on the way as well. However, since you have rebelled and caused chaos, it's only natural for me to hand you over to Ministry of Justice for questioning. You had an official position in the past, so it's also a possibility for me to hand you to Supreme Court. However, there are people of my heavenly saint cult in Supreme Court, too." Long Jiannan's expression wavered, but she still didn't speak a word. Qin Mu couldn't ask anything out from her, so he flicked his fingers to seal her souls and spirits with heavenly devil creation technique. He then said to the two girls, "Fan Yunxiao's ship is fast and he shouldn't find it difficult to find his way here. He should come tomorrow. If not, 5 days is the longest he may take." Let us stay on the island for a few days and see if the Solomon seals can be brought back to life. Sai Yunxiang hesitated. Cult Master feels tenderness for the lives of these Solomon seals, but if Long Jiannan was to escape, she might find her way here again and trample on these Solomon seals once more. Cult Master cannot lust for her charm just because she's pretty. Lust for her charm. Qin Mu sized up Long Jiannan and asked in puzzlement, she isn't pretty, so where's the charm? Sai Yunxiang was astonished. Even though Long Jiannan had a weird temper, she was still considered a beauty. Even though she had become slightly older after shedding her skin, she was still a beautiful woman. For the sacred cult master of Heavenly Saint cult to not find her beautiful, wasn't he a little too slow? She probed, what's cult master's definition of beautiful? Someone who looks like Granny. After a moment, he added without thinking, or someone plump like Sister Yushio. Granny Sai said that plump girls look nice, but I must be careful of doxes. Ling Yushio was very pleased and gave Sai Yunxiang a glance. Her heart already secretly considered the cowherd boy to be her intimate friend. Sai Yunxiang felt indignant and said, I'm from the same family as the previous cult mistress, and in terms of seniority, I should be calling her aunt. Does cult master thinks I'm pretty? You're too skinny and you're still young, you must be even younger than me, right? Qin Mu sized up Sai Yunxiang and shook his head. Granny said that skinny girls are not that pretty. Being a little plump is okay, since they can bear children. Granny Apothecary also said that it's good for girls to be a little plump, but all the people in the village said he's an old rogue. Don't be sad though, you will be pretty if you eat more, but don't get too plump. Grandpa Apothecary said that being too plump isn't beautiful, either. Sai Yunxiang was stunned. According to Qin Mu's beauty standards, Long Jiannan was indeed not considered beautiful, and even she herself was not considered beautiful. No wonder then that when she had taken off her clothes just moments ago and was left with only her undergarments, this fellow had not even taken an extra glance at her. It turned out that he had been brought astray by the rogues in his village. The young sacred cult master was good at everything. His wisdom, capability, aptitude, comprehension, and even resolution were all outstanding. It was just that there was something wrong with his beauty standards. Qin Mu purposely didn't lower his voice and said, leaving this sister Long alive is mainly to lure the Dragon King out. The Dragon King's abilities are high and he has even raised a flood dragon. He's a sect master after all, so if I don't get rid of him, it will be hard for me to be at ease. I have to be very scared and on the edge every time I walk in the streets, fearing I will be killed. By handing Sister Long to the Crown Prince and requesting the help of the left and right guardians and cult protector elders, as long as the Dragon King dares to come, he will die with an intact corpse. He had a grave expression as he continued, he must die without an intact corpse, his brain must be smashed into smithereens, otherwise, no one will know if he will come back to life. Speaking of it, I wonder why this Dragon King is looking for me, but this isn't important. The important point is that he must die. Long Jiannan shuddered. Qin Mu's plan was too vicious. As long as the Dragon King came to save her, he would certainly die. There was no chance that he could defeat the guardians and cult protector elders of Heavenly Devil Cult. Cult Master Qin, there's a reason why my father invited you over, she suddenly said. Qin Mu looked at her and smiled. Sister Long is finally willing to speak. Long Jiannan sighed and said, someone found my father and said that it wasn't good for him to show himself, but that he still wanted to meet with Cult Master Qin and negotiate peace. Qin Mu was astonished. May I ask who this person is? Dao Master. Long Jiannan continued, of so-called 3 religions and 9 schools, Dao Sect, Great Thunderclap Monastery, and Heavenly Devil Cult are considered the 3 religions, while our Dragon Rider Sect is only considered a sect of the 9 schools. Cult Master is simply too powerful, and not only did he rescue the Emperor, he even killed so many experts of Dao Sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery at the Temple of Heaven in Imperial City. Dao Master is flustered now and fears that Emperor Yangfeng and Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor will ally with Heavenly Devil Cult to deal with Dao Sect. It isn't convenient for him to meet you personally, so as to prevent any misunderstandings between you and the Emperor. He found my father and requested him to invite you to Heavenly Dragon Island for a meeting. Her expression turned cold. I was courteous to you on the way here, But do you really think I didn't want to kill you? You killed countless disciples of my Dragon Rider sect in Heaven Wave City, and the Emperor even seized our properties and executed our entire family, so my grudge with you guys is deeper than the sea. However, Dao Master is my father's benefactor and had saved his life before. I don't dare to go against his words. Qin Mu had a pensive look as he rubbed his chin. Another few stubbles had popped out on his chin, which was really irritating. Dao Master wants to meet me to negotiate peace, yet Dao sect is negotiating peace with my Heavenly Saint cult but not with Eternal Peace Empire. He pondered over it. Dao Master is worried about my Heavenly Saint cult allying with Eternal Peace Empire to attack Dao sect, since he's already old and doesn't have many years left to live. He can still protect Dao sect if he negotiates peace now, otherwise, once he dies, Dao sect is going to be eradicated. The snake meat was very fragrant and the fish was also not bad. However, Long Jiannan only ate a few pieces of fish and didn't even try the snake meat. Qin Mu politely offered it to her twice, but seeing how she simply didn't want to eat her snake, he could only drop this thought. The next day, Cai Yunxiang and Ling Yuxiu had woke up early, yet they saw Qin Mu already moving around on the island, his footstep never ending. Sometimes he was walking through the beach, and at other times he was walking over the sea. He would even leap up into the clouds at times. His aptitude and comprehension are higher than that of others, yet he's still so hardworking. Cai Yunxiang gritted her teeth and thought to herself, if it wasn't so that I wouldn't have a chance to kill you, would there be a need to be so hardworking? Qin Mu had no other thoughts in his mind as he executed Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique while walking. He operated the technique, trying to merge all kinds of techniques into one to comprehend Unity Technique of 6 Directions Realm. Cai Yunxiang was wrong. Qin Mu's aptitude was definitely the lowest tier. Back then, the people of Disabled Elderly Village had tested it, and he wasn't even a spirit body, but merely an ordinary person. Qin Mu should have lived his whole life ordinarily, yet who would have expected that an overlord body from village chief would ignite Qin Mu's fighting spirit, as well as the fighting spirit of everyone in Disabled Elderly Village, pushing all kinds of spirit pills and miraculous medicines onto him. Furthermore, Qin Mu was indeed hardworking and could even be the most hardworking person in the world. There was also an invincible belief in him that he was the overlord body that surpassed others. If he was inferior to others, that could only mean that he wasn't working hard enough. His current cultivation and abilities were not entirely due to the grooming of village chief, Granny Sai, and the rest all gained by chance encounters, but mostly his hard work. If an ordinary person was willing to use their brain and work hard, it was hard to imagine how big their potential would be. No one could find someone extraordinary based on hard work before they succeeded. Only after success would others find the person extraordinary. When they looked at a legend, yet they would all be overlooking the person's hard work. Cai Yunxiang and Ling Yuxiu saw this situation and began to cultivate diligently as well. The two girls cultivated by themselves and didn't disturb each other. Long Jiannan laid under the tree and breathed in and out, trying to shed her skin again. However, since her injuries were too severe and the energy consumed would be too great, she couldn't do it. If she shed her skin once more, she would become a middle-aged woman. After shedding a few more times, she would become an old woman. When it was late in the morning, Qin Mu returned to the spring, planning to fetch some spring water for the Solomon seals at the side of the spring. Yet he stopped in his footsteps when he saw an old Daoist in a washed Daoist robe that was slightly grey beside the spring. The man was currently using a leaf to fetch water while walking carefully among the Solomon seals, watering them. Beside him was also a youth that was helping to water as well. The old Daoist saw a leaf sprouting from a Solomon seal's head, and his wrinkled face beamed. He squatted down and gently touched the leaf. These Solomon seals can still be brought back to life after dying. What a wonderful life. Isn't that so, Cult Master Qin? Each and every action from the old Daoist seemed to go according to the course of nature. It was as if this sea, this island, this spring, this sky, and these Solomon seals were one and had no distinction between what is one's own and what is that of another. What senior brother says is extremely right. Qin Mu walked forward and said, "It's just that I don't know if these Solomon seals will still be the Solomon seal from before when they are brought back to life." Heavenly Saint Cult Master pays his respects to Dao Master. The old Daoist immediately returned the greeting. It's still the first time we have met. This old Dao pays his respects. Lin Xian, quickly pay your respects to the human emperor of the current generation. Beside him, Daozi Lin Xian was bewildered, but he didn't ask any question and did a disciple right to Qin Mu while saying, Daozi pays his respect to human emperor. Qin Mu's heart trembled slightly when he guessed how Dao Master was so sure that he was the human emperor of the current generation. He had only learned 2 moves from village chief's sword picture, and he didn't use them much. Other than executing it in front of Emperor Yangfeng and Imperial Preceptor, he had only used them in front of Pan Gongzhou and Daozi Lin Xian. When Daozi Lin Xian had followed Dan Yangzi to block the gate of Imperial College, he was defeated under the first move of sword picture, sword treading mountains and rivers. When he returned back to Dao sect, he must have shown Qin Mu's sword treading mountains and rivers. Dao Master must have more or less known that Qin Mu's sword skills came from village chief, but he couldn't confirm Qin Mu was the human emperor of the current generation. As for why he had such a confident tone, he was actually testing the waters. Qin Mu's thoughts were also meticulous, but even though he guessed Dao Master's thoughts, he didn't deny and also went to fetch some water for the Solomon seal while saying with a smile, Dao Master possesses remarkable abilities and your wisdom surpasses others. Dao Master and Daozi Lin Xian were using leaves to carry water while he used his vital qi to sweep up the spring water, which was more convenient and much faster. Old Dao Master saw him using vital qi and said, Dao follows the nature. Human Emperor, what's the rush? Qin Mu said, being free from nature, we should apply what we learn. Since Dao Master is not applying, why did he have to learn? Dao Master frowned, but his eyebrows soon smoothed out again and he smiled. The disagreement of our sects comes from our ideals and how we conduct ourselves in society. I won't debate with you over the teachings of Dao sect and Heavenly Devil cult. Human Emperor has withdrawn from worldly affairs for several hundred years, yet his student has come back. You must be planning something, am I right? Qin Mu used his vital qi to control the flow of the water, then said seriously, what can I be planning? Village chief said that the human emperor is a responsibility, but until now, I still don't understand what good can come from being the human emperor. First, there's no authority, and second, there's no power, yet I still have to carry responsibility. If Dao Master is willing, I could give it up to you. Dao Master was watering the Solomon seals with the leaf when his expression changed slightly. He hurriedly shook his head. I can't shoulder this responsibility. One of them used a leaf while the other a spell to water the Solomon seals. Daozi Lin Xian took it all in and shook his head secretly. This old and young both had their own stubborn viewpoints and were very obstinate. After a time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Qin Mu finished watering all the Solomon seals. Old Dao Master also planted the leaf he used to carry water back into the soil and stretched his back with a sigh. I'm old and my bones aren't like they used to be. Since Human Emperor is the cult master of Heavenly Devil cult, Dao sect won't be able to go against Human Emperor anymore. This old Dao came to find Human Emperor to identify his successor to Human Emperor. Lin Xian had also paid his respects to you just now, and after I die, he will become Dao Master. Qin Mu greeted Lin Xian, and Lin Xian immediately returned his greeting. I'm not Dao Master, I dare not accept. Old Dao Master smiled. After you become Dao Master, you will still be half a seniority lower, so you will have salute half a hand lower. Lin Xian was shocked. Old Dao Master said in a neither too fast nor too slow voice, us who cultivate Qi have received grace from the human emperor of the first generation, so everyone respects him. Each and every clan and sect had taken out their best treasure at that time to create human emperor's seal, so you must follow the etiquette and can't be negligent. Could old Dao take a look at the seal? Qin Mu took out the black lump which was human emperor's seal and tossed it to him. Old Dao Master caught it in a panic, his face was twitching slightly. How could you toss it? How could you toss it? Before this old Dao came to meet human emperor, I had washed myself and changed my clothes, and even my hands were washed several times. I was reverent and respectful, not daring to be negligent, so how could you just toss human emperor's seal like this? Qin Mu was bewildered and said, village chief had tossed it to me like this. I didn't want it, so I tossed it back at him, yet he stuffed it back to me. I couldn't defeat him, so I could only accept it. Old Dao Master had a bitter face as he held Human Emperor's seal in both of his hands. He examined it over and over again and verified that it was indeed the seal. Human Emperor, please take it back. Once he said that, he took a step forward and offered Human Emperor's seal respectfully in both of his hands. Only when Qin Mu took back Human Emperor's seal did the old Daoist take a step back and placed his hands down. He said to Daozi Lin Xian, remember, Human Emperor's seal can only be received like this, you can't mess up the etiquette. Daozi Lin Xian acknowledged this while watching Qin Mu toss Human Emperor's seal into his Dao Tai sack. However, Lin Xian didn't dare to say anything. He is the Human Emperor, he can be disrespectful, but we can't be disrespectful. Old Dao Master put a lot of effort into saying, that seal was created from the best treasures of our ancestors from various sects and various clans. It was offered to the Human Emperor, and the person who controls this seal will become the Emperor of all the human races. Therefore, our Dao sect has to be respectful. This seal is what we offered to the Human Emperor, so the Human Emperor can be disrespectful to this seal. Do you understand? Daozi Lin Xian nodded. Disciple understood. Qin Mu couldn't help feeling slightly moved. Old Dao Master was left with little of his lifespan, his life coming to an end in the next few years, yet he still dedicated his full attention to teaching his disciple. This kind of traditional master and disciple relationship had it much easier to produce outstanding talents. Old Dao Master was already old, so he had to be hoping to groom Daozi in these final years, allowing him to succeed him. What else did Dao Master come here to say, besides inquiring about Human Emperor's seal? Qin Mu asked with a smile. Old Dao Master looked him deeply in the eyes and said, Human Emperor should know that the reform of eternal peace Imperial Preceptor and Emperor Yangfeng isn't the orthodox path and will bring the wrath of heaven. This snow disaster was a warning, so for all the people in the world, Human Emperor should stop this reform. Qin Mu shook his head. The general situation of the world is rolling forth like a flood. May the deceased rest in peace while the living move on with their lives. Whoever dares to stand in front to block the path will be crushed. I can only go with the flow, along with the flood. Old senior brother, you have already suffered quite a lot, why are you still so stubborn? Old Dao Master sighed. I won't argue with you. No matter how we'd argue, it's still about the teachings of both sides, so it's hard to convince the other. That's why it's better to not argue at all. Since you are insistent on supporting Imperial Preceptor's reform, I will only say one thing to you. Dao follows the nature, and the reform seeks to change Dao, to change nature. God is born in nature and formed by the great Dao. If you want to change Dao, you know its advantages and disadvantages. Great ruins was the mistake of our predecessors, but Human Emperor should have noticed that by now. Qin Mu was slightly stunned. Dao Master obviously knew more inside stories about this. However, Dao Master wasn't willing to speak more about it and said, I came to see Human Emperor and express my intentions. Dao sect is enemy with eternal peace, but we won't be enemies with Human Emperor. Disciple, bring 14 writings of Dao sword over. Lin Xian took out a stone tablet from a leather sack around his waist. That stone tablet was 6 yards tall when taken out, and on it were some sword markings drawn vertically and horizontally. Lin Xian hesitated. Dao Master. Show him, said old Dao Master. Old Human Emperor's sword skills are better than mine and even more superior. I've shown Imperial Preceptor the 14 writings of Dao sword, so why can't I show them to the current Human Emperor? Daozi Lin Xian erected the stone tablet nearby, and old Dao Master said, 14 writings of Dao sword, 1 writing for 1 sword. When Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor came to Dao sect to seek knowledge, I let him look for 14 days, so I will let Human Emperor look for 14 days as well. As for the pre-celestial supreme mystery technique of our Dao sect, I won't be showing it to Human Emperor. Qin Mu revealed an expression of astonishment. Old Rulai had also allowed him to see Rulai's Mahayana Sutra, however, he only showed him the skills and not the technique. Now Dao Master was allowing him to see the technique of pre-celestial supreme mystery technique, but not showing him the skill. No matter what, both masters of the 2 sacred grounds were broad-minded. Qin Mu muttered to himself irresolutely and took out great educational heavenly devil scriptures. I'm not used to receiving favors from others, so this is great educational heavenly devil scriptures. I will allow Daozi to read for 14 days. Daozi Lin Xian's heart was quite moved, and he looked toward his master. Old Dao Master's face changed slightly, and he muttered to himself before saying, "Since he let you read, you will read. If great educational heavenly devil scriptures contain good, you are a god. If it contains evil, you are devil. If you fall and become the devil, it just means your cultivation was not enough, your nature was not enough." Daozi Ling Xian understood. Qin Mu sat in front of the stone wall and looked at the sword traces on the stone wall. These sword traces were vertical and horizontal and didn't look like they had any pattern to them. When he looked at the first one, he didn't see anything wonderful about it, but once he put his mind to it, he gradually felt some wonderful sword will. In his eyes, the sword trace was no longer a sword trace, but seemed to have some mathematical reasonings. There seemed to be a Daoist scribbling with a brush and writing down the reasonings of algebra. It was then gradually transformed into a black and white Taiji diagram that was stirring up. A dot threading the vast movements, yin and yang come and go within two modes. Qin Mu's heart slightly trembled. The cultivation method of Dao sword was indeed different from other, and an extremely deep sword will was carved into the sword trace on the wall. This sword will contained mathematical reasonings and formed the first form of Dao sword. The mathematical reasonings contained in Dao sword's first form was the yin and yang calculation of the binary system. This can be compared with computational canon of supreme mystery. Qin Mu's mind was slightly stirred. He had comprehended most of computational canon of supreme mystery, so the first form wasn't hard for him. Not long after, Qin Mu finished comprehending the first form of Dao sword and turned to look at the second sword trace. The second form of Dao sword, binding of 5 qi and 3 eons, rising on the spot, cloud chariots crossing. This sword trace contained a ternary system and a quinary system which correspond to 3 eons and 5 qi. The mathematical reasoning behind this move would construct the sun, moon, and earth, while the 5 qi would face the eons. This move wasn't considered difficult for Qin Mu as well. He used the time it takes for an incense stick to burn to finish comprehending this move before going to look at the third sword trace. The third form of Dao sword, 5-colored auspicious clouds cover, celestial sounds tinkling on the 3 heavens. This move also used 3 eons and 5 qi, however, it was superior and included the transformation of 3 eons and 5 qi. Qin Mu spent a whole hour to finish comprehending this move. The fourth form of Dao sword, turning heavenly cycles silently, meeting every manifestation of nature shifting. The mathematical reasoning in this move was extremely complicated and interrelated with the mathematical reasoning of 3 producing all things. Using computational canon of supreme mystery to understand the marvel of this move was extremely difficult. When Qin Mu solved the marvel of this sword trace, he realized that the sun was about to set into the sea. The sky was already turning dark, and the island was all red from the shine of the red sun on the surface of the sea. I won't be able to solve the 5th writing. Qin Mu's expression turned grave. Dao sword was harder and harder to learn as he progressed, and the mathematical reasonings became more and more profound. It was impossible to completely learn everything in 14 days. He might not even be able to learn the 5th writing. He could only choose to comprehend the sword wills and learn the sword skills. As for the other writings, he had no time to learn them and could only see how much he could comprehend. Qin Mu thought this, then immediately looked toward the 5th sword trace. The 5th form of Dao sword, Jade Cave taking back myriad of transformations, romance on Kunlun Mountains. He put his heart to comprehend, but the mathematical reasonings in the sword will were already too hard for him to understand. Even though computational canon of supreme mystery was mostly comprehended by him, there was still some mathematical reasoning not included in there. He reckoned they should be in computational canon of mysterious lady. Dao Master was sitting to the side, calm and composed. He seemed to not know what was hunger. Qin Mu was hungry and went down the stone wall to find Ling Yuxiu and Sai Yunxiang. The 2 girls were already done preparing dinner. They asked him about the stranger, and when they heard that it was Dao Master, the 2 girls were both astonished and didn't dare to be impudent. When the 3rd day came, Fan Yunxiao flew his ship over and suddenly cried out loud. He kowtowed several times to Dao Master. Old Dao Master opened his eyes and took a look at him with a calm expression. You joined Heavenly Devil Cult? I was indeed right about you, your heart is indeed not righteous. Go, I won't kill you. Fan Yinxiao bawled, then wiped his tears while driving the ship away. This video will end here.